Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Death. You're joined by myself, David, and Asanda, and today we're joined by a very, very exciting guest. We've got Jelena Bekvalac with us today, and we're very excited for this particular episode because it's something a little bit different. It's something a little bit exciting, and it's an episode which we think you'll really, really enjoy. So, Jelena, please tell us in your own words what it is that you do.
Well, I have the great pleasure of being a curator of human osteology at the Museum of London. And that entails looking after many thousands of skeletal remains of humans that have died in the last 100, 2,000 and over 2,000 years. And it's a fantastic job because it's such a tangible link to the past directly through the people. So I look after them when they've come from archaeological excavations. So when there's developments and building sites that you see around, you often then encounter lots of things from the past. So you'll get parts of buildings or objects, but often you'll encounter burial grounds and people. And I'm very fortunate then to be able to look after some of those people, and they come to us to be part of the archaeological archive.
So it sounds like it's very exciting work that you're doing at the Museum of London. And is that something that you'd always envisaged yourself doing?
But not really. It's quite a funny thing. I mean, I sort of came to it through a rather different route maybe than some people. I originally studied archaeology and ancient history, but I've always been interested in people and the past. And some people would often sort of say that, I don't know whether ghoulish is the right word, but I didn't mind anything to do with death. So I did my initial degree, and then I was going to go and do the archaeology and hopefully be part of the team at Museum of London. But then, unfortunately, we went into the dreaded recession of 1990, and so that rather changed the trajectory. But fortunately, they then just started to develop a master's course, which was the focus at looking at funerary archaeology, osteology and paleopathology. And then I was very fortunate to get a place on that course. And I was one of the first sort of cohorts to do that. And that was brilliant because I could then use my archaeological background, but then also then learn more about the anatomy, funeral practices, and then also start learning about disease processes and how I could actually see those on the skeleton and how you can learn through that and through the people and putting them back into the context of the time they came from. So I sort of came to it roundabout. Sometimes I sort of thank Mrs. Thatcher for getting me to that point. So it was a bit of a mixture route, really.
Well, it's really, really interesting to say that to our listeners who might be listening. Can you tell us in essentially simple terms what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis, for example? What your typical day entails?
Yeah, well, at a museum, it's quite lovely, actually. You don't necessarily always have like a typical day per se, but predominantly my focus would be looking after the skeletal remains. So they will come to us to the archive after they've been processed by the archaeological unit that may have then discovered them. And they will then come to us. We were very fortunate as a unit and as a team to have a database that was created just for us because of a response to a really large excavation that went on at Spitalfields Market. And that revealed over 14,000 individuals, and we look after 10,500 of those people. And so what we needed was a mechanism by which you could record and capture all the information about them, but using standards that everybody knew how you were aging, how you were sexing, and how you were assessing pathology or taking measurements. And so my role on this part now with the archive is maintaining and looking after all of those lovely individuals. They're all in conservation boxes. Unfortunately, in death, you become a number, so everybody has a context number, and anywhere that you are excavated from is assigned a site code. And so you are then looked after as that sort of collective group from that one site. So my day will be making sure that the store is safe. Do I need to repack or rebox anyone? Do I need to do any analysis myself? Because we are also then recording information into the database. So then you can lay out a skeleton anatomically. You might not have the whole person, you might only have part of them. And then you're looking with your naked eye to see what assessments you can make. Can I estimate your sex and age? Can I see any pathology? I then may also be answering inquiries from students or researchers, because where we're so lucky to have this database, we've been able to share the data digitally. And that means then if you can't actually come to the museum, which at the moment, because we're closed for our move, we can then share that data. So people can then do research using the data on the individuals from the site. And they cover over 2,000 years history of London, and they come from a lovely geographical area that really sort of takes you up to like the M25 orbital area. So it's a fantastic geographical and temporal range that people can then incorporate in their research. So I will help somebody work out what sites might help them in their studies. I might answer a query about ethics, why have we got these individuals? Can I assist maybe on a panel to advise with a research application? So it's a lovely range. Exhibitions, we've done exhibitions in the past. So it can be a lovely range. You never quite know what emails might be waiting for you sometimes. And then also working with lots of lovely colleagues in the museum who may be doing different projects that they might then think, oh, there's something or someone within our skeletal collection that could actually help add to that narrative.
Gosh, it sounds like you are doing such amazing work in the Museum of London, and it's really generally very interesting to hear about. So then with, like you said, there is no typical day per se, but then what would you describe your sort of the highs and the lows of your day? What would be the best parts of your day, and what would be the most challenging parts of your day?
Well, the best parts of my day are always when I'm actually with the lovely skeletons, because I do get very attached to them. And I'm with them probably much more now because of the museum moving. So we're moving from our London Wall site to the new location at Smithfield. And as part of that, it's a huge undertaking. The whole museum is having to pack up and then audit all of the collections. So I spend now many days in our store with the skeletal remains in preparation, sort of preparing them for the move. So that's always a great high, being with them. Sometimes the lows or the challenges can sometimes be documentary issues, because some things may have been excavated many, many years ago, and sometimes some of the associated documentary information can be quite difficult. And so you want to try to make sure that everything is correct and matches. So that can be a bit of a challenge sometimes, trying to go back, often sometimes through paper records, which that itself can be a challenge if they haven't been filed correctly. So that can be quite lovely. And unfortunately, sometimes if you have anything like water ingress, if anything like that comes in, somehow it never seems to land on a concrete floor. It always wants to land on a lovely skeleton box. So that then is like all hands to the pump, you're trying to move the boxes. So
Oh dear, that move, it can't be an easy task you got at hand, and all the best of luck with the move. How long do you expect that to take?
Well, the new museum is set to open in 2026. So we've got a few years yet, but with the scale of the museum collections and the collection that I look after with the Human Remains now is probably about 25,000 individuals. So it's a gargantuan task. I'm in a lovely store that has no windows. So I said I probably won't look the same at the end after 2 years.
Oh dear. Absolutely. This is absolutely fantastic. All the best with the move, actually, with everything else, and hopefully get some windows fitting at some point.
Really, yes.
So now we've done some research about some things that you do, and now we know that you've also done some work with post-mortem CT and some recoms for some Asian remains. Tell us about that.
Well, that was really interesting, fortuitous, really, because it's one of these things with archaeology is that we often borrow things from other fields or other developments. And one of these is the application of radiography. We were very lucky at the museum that we did have access to conservation, and they had a wet film sort of kit. But if we tried to use that for our human remains, it was really difficult, and you couldn't always get lovely long bones like, the femur into this thing that looked like a little mini microwave. So with the development of digital radiography, this meant that we could apply that much more readily, and we could actually take the kit to our collection, which was so big. And my colleague that I worked with many years before, and she then is freelance, Gaynor Weston. She had also worked on projects that involved quite a lot of post-medieval individuals, so from sort of 17th, 18th, 19th century. And we were sort of saying, well, it would be so interesting if we could use this application and try to answer some questions that really you can't always answer unless you could use something like that. So things like cancers, we can sometimes see bone changes on the outside of the bones, but not everyone might express that. And sometimes things are going on inside the bone, and the only mechanism then would be the radiography. So it was a consequence of really talking to Gaynor. She'd had some really interesting sites. We look after so many people. It was a case of, oh, is there something we could maybe do and apply? And that's when we were very fortunate to apply for the City of London Archaeological Trust grant, the Rosemary Green grant. And that enabled us to ask this big question about the impact of industrialisation. And that allowed us then to have access to the digital X-ray machine, bring it to the museum, and then also take it to other locations outside of London on that scale, and have the resource again with the money to be able to do that. So it was a consequence really of many years of working with the collections, and then that sort of light bulb moment of, oh, how could we maybe apply this? And then fortunately, getting a grant. So that's really how it came about from our side. And then now, fortunately, it is more accessible. So more places and units are able to use it and find it really very useful and really helpful in the analysis of the skeletal remains.
Really, really is very exciting to know that you can use radiography to answer questions even after so many years. So I think the work that you've done with that is absolutely fantastic. Where can people find out where this work is available for them to wanted some more information?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate, as I said, to get that funding. So as part of that, on the Museum of London website, there is a link to the collections and the archaeological collections. And there's one there that will say Centre for Human Bioarchaeology. And if you go to that, there's another little subsection called the impact of industrialisation. And on that has the different sort of themes that we looked at in relation to the project. And in the introduction page, there is a link to a NAC database that holds over 16,000 radiographs, but they're JPEGs because we can't share, unfortunately, the DICOM. But that means you can then see the different sites that we looked at and the different elements. So because we weren't able to radiograph every single element, we selected the crania, the left femur, the lumbar vertebra, the pelvis and the second metacarpals, because they were elements that we were potentially more likely to be able to have within our archaeological individuals. And as a suite of areas that you might see pathological changes, they would be the sort of bones that we might pick things up. That database with those images can then be accessed through that link on the website. And then you have the associated information to say what we were seeing macroscopically, as well as if there was anything being picked up from the radiographs.
Oh gosh, so it sounds like there's a wealth of information out there if people wanted to know more about some of the interesting things that you found out during your work. So with all that you've done, it sounds like you've done essentially everything from speaking to you. But if you had to pick just, one thing or two things that you thought were standout achievements over your career, what would you say they were?
Well, I would definitely say working with my colleague and friend Gaynor Weston with our project, The Impact of Industrialisation, because that was an amazing thing to be able to do, and to be able to use our big collections and our large data sets to really sort of address a question like that with industrialisation. So to be able to do that, to work with her, and also to work with lots of other, lovely people who were really kind and helped us. We also worked with radiographers and radiologists. And so we were so lucky to meet really great people, and then to be able to publish the book and then subsequently do lots of other sort of outreach events with that. That's a definite, sort of a high, and I'm really proud of what we achieved. And the other thing I think would be the exhibitions that I was able to do. We were funded initially, the centre, by Wellcome, And we did an exhibition in 2008 called Skeletons, our buried, London's buried bones. And then we did a regional tour. And then I was able to do an exhibition based on the excavation at the Royal London Hospital, which was amazing because that was looking at dissection and post-mortems and a functioning hospital. So to be able to curate and again work with brilliant colleagues to do that was really fantastic. So that's sort of probably about three things, doesn't it? Sorry, but I always get very excited. But they were fantastic things to be part of.
No, they absolutely were. And I actually saw the skeletons exhibition. That's fantastic as well.
Marvellous.
So some really, really great things to hear about. Now, as a curator of human remains, what do you think is a common misconception about your job?
I think sometimes people might think that I work with remains of people that are much more recent and are probably fleshed. I think sometimes they find that quite difficult to separate. So maybe sometimes they hear about lots of things with forensics, and so they sometimes think that might be more my role. I use forensic methods, so we sort of share similarities there, but I can't have or look after anyone that is less than 100 years old. So mine is really all about, historical and archaeological. And I think sometimes people get that muddled. And sometimes I think what's great about us having the centre and doing outreach events is that it isn't because it's like me or other people thinking I want to go and disturb these individuals in these burial grounds. It's because we're responding to what's happening in the development of London and any city or metropolitan area. So I think sometimes people might think it's that like we're choosing to go to some of these areas or do things, and that isn't the case. It's a response to it. So it's a sort of like a tandem thing really there. Sometimes the time period that they might think I deal with, or the nature of the remains, and then how I've actually come to have them and look after them.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, thanks for clarifying that, because I think it's important that we try and clarify certain misconceptions about people's roles. So then I guess, apart from conquering the world, what's the next thing for Jelena? What's next for you?
Oh, what's next for me? Oh, gosh, yes, the osteologist on the moon. Well, predominantly, the next 2 years we'll be focusing on the preparation for the move to the new museum. So I will be with all the lovely skeletons and packing them in a higher standard than they already are. But everyone is already in these great conservation boxes and different labels so that we're not muddling anyone up, and everyone is packed and looked after to particular standards. But obviously when you're moving, we just need to then ensure that everything's even more safe and well padded. So I'm then going through and working with my colleague each different sort of site, and then you're looking to say, well, how many people have we got in this site? How many adults or children do we have? Which ones might be more vulnerable than others? So if they do have a pathological process, that can affect the nature of the bone. So what mechanisms do we need then to make sure that's protected? So it's really a very more practical, hands-on role for the next 2 years with the skeletal remains, and then preparing them for the move. And then once we've done that, we'll then be sort of establishing the centre in the new place, and then hopefully welcoming researchers back to us physically, and being able to help and support more research and lovely projects with students and researchers.
Not a very easy task to do, but we are very, very sort of grateful to hear about the things that you're doing. So with that in mind, then I guess that brings us to a very nice end of our podcast episode. It has honestly been an honour talking to you today about what it is that you do at the Museum of London, and how radiography has sometimes helped answer all these questions. I think our listeners will particularly enjoy this episode, and can feel free to comment if they feel like they have any comments to make on this. Thank you so much for your time today. We have appreciated it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
No worries, that's okay. This may be the end of our conversation today, but it's certainly not the end of the discussion surrounding what happens beyond death. Thank you.